This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse. I want to start in a place like Bob Trevino Likes It. A friend of mine also had a hand in producing. I've been hearing about this for the last couple of years. I
Love
saw it
it.
on Friday and I had to go home afterwards and put myself in a bath. I had laughed so much and I had cried so much that I was completely
Right.
dysregulated.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, I can almost cry right now.
Oh,
Lolo, you have had, even though you've only been a part of 2 films thus
yeah.
far, there's going to be so
Yeah.
much. Way to pick some damn good stories to be a part of. This is why the movies that you've been a part of is the reason
Yeah.
why I like watching movies and why I like being a part of movies.
Yeah.
I think acting sometimes the technique of acting is getting back to who we are and showing authentically who we are and
Right.
showing what we bring to the table. And we're all so unique. For
Right.
sometimes that's really a clunky start for people to be like, okay, I'm perceived this way, but I
Yeah.
feel this way and I have these experiences.
Yeah.
I am was acting always the thing? Because I just did a deep dive on
Uh-huh.
your YouTube channel of Sitting
Yeah.
Pretty, and I wanted when you started that, was that for lack of awareness for everybody else in the world
Yeah.
how you live your life? Or was that because I need to show who I am so people can relate to that more? Or I'm going to put myself in the spotlight. If nobody's going to give, I'm going to put the light over here.
Yeah. Okay. So love that. First off, love that you love Bob Trevino Likes It. It's such a special film. I always laugh when people are always like, it just tore me apart emotionally. And I only laugh because that was our experience like filming it, right? It was just such an emotional ride. And then seeing the way that it came out, the thing that makes me so proud is exactly what Tracy, our director and the writer of the film, exactly what she wanted to happen is happening. And it's now less about being emotional about it, but being proud and excited and joyful in the fact that people are actually enjoying this film the way it was intended to be received. And since it is inspired by her true story, it's just been such a beautiful experience. And to have been a part of something, a story like this, again, closely knit with our writer director, it's just really special that I could just even play a part in it. As far as my YouTube channel, though, the interesting thing is I started my YouTube channel in a sense originally like almost as a sense of rebellion against my
Ooh, tell
corporate
me
job.
more. Wait, say it again. Say it again. Against what?
It was like a sense of rebellion against my corporate job. So what
And what was your corporate job?
my corporate job, ironically, I was in the marketing department for an up and coming streaming service.
Which
So,
one? Quibi?
so no, it's for a streaming service. It's still here. It's called All Black, but it's spelled all BLK. But when I signed on, when I say I was at the inception literally of coming up with the first name, which was UMC Urban Movie Channel, which was founded by the same founder of BET. So Robert Johnson wanted to launch a streaming service and it over time ended up being UMC. Since then, once I left my job, they have rebranded themselves to be All Black. So I know it's so when I was there during the time of the inception of my YouTube, we were still called UMC. And at the time, the boss that I had at the time, she the way I experienced it, I would say she almost threatened to fire me. It was like one of those conversations where it was like, Lauren, you're at your desk and you're like laughing too much. Because one part of my job was that I would have to watch the films and the TV shows that we wanted to license to stream. A lot of it was comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a comedy girl. I'm going to be cracking up at my desk. Could I have been a little bit quieter because I was in the office? Sure. But I'm doing my job. This is what's happening. So She was like, you're laughing at your desk. And the way, like some of the kind of admin work, I was getting it done and I was getting it done on time. It just wasn't in the process that I guess she felt it should have been done. And so it was very like, let me show you how to use Excel. And I'm like, girl, I know how to use Excel. Like, now you're being rude. And so it was, and then it ended on a note of Lauren, get it together. She didn't say these exact words, but again, this is my interpretation of what I was having. Lauren, get it together. And I'm like, did she just threaten to fire me? I immediately was just like so emotional about it. By the time I went home, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, this lady, although she's doing her job to whatever degree that means, right? Although she's doing her job, she has no idea by her threatening to take my job away, she has now threatened my livelihood overall. Now I'm going back on disability government assistance, which at the time was $750 a month, and I live in Los Angeles. Do the
That's
math.
it. Yeah.
Impossible. I lose good health insurance. Now I'm back on government health insurance. So versus like privatized that you get through a corporate job. And I was like, she has no idea. And so for me, it was like, I will never let somebody have control of my livelihood moving forward. So I was like, what can I do instead? And so I brainstormed and landed on the idea of doing a YouTube channel because I had gotten my degree only a couple years prior to this moment. I got my degree in video editing and TV production. So I knew how to set up
Uh-huh.
a camera. I knew how to do post-production. I knew a little bit of lighting and all these different things. So then when I decided, oh, I could do YouTube because I heard, because at the time, this was like around 2015, YouTube was just starting to make its first millionaires. So it was like, oh, YouTube,
Monetize. Yeah.
you could be a millionaire on YouTube. And so I was like, what am I going to talk about? And the thing that just struck me was like, let me talk about my own life. People have always wondered, how do I work a full-time job? How did I party and do all these things during my college years? How do I dress so fly? How do I do my hair? All these different things. Because when people think of disability, they don't think of style, fashion, beauty, a good time. They don't associate a good life and disability together. So that's why I started Sitting Pretty and used it as an opportunity to educate and empower the community and then educate and empower non-disabled folks to learn how to like bridge that gap and interact with the community in a like a in a good way.
In
Just like
in a comedic way. Can I even just say,
yeah.
like, I did a deep dive last night.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know. I'd watched the movies and stuff, and then Courtney said I got some information that you started on YouTube. So then last night, going to bed, I was like, okay, Lauren, Lolo, Spencer, YouTube. And I was like, oh, what? What a fun, expressive way to utilize all of your talents. But like exactly what you said, we don't have to make this thing taboo or unknown. I
Right.
love the expression of you. I love your direction. I love your editing. Even
Thank
last night, I was
you.
like, I need to talk to her about YouTube editing when we finish this. But it was remarkable to go back 9 years and see your
Yeah.
first video
Yeah.
into what you're doing now,
Right.
10 years. And I always say on this podcast too, it takes 10 years to really make a career, make a splash, or
Yeah.
start working in the field that you want to work, like taking in a creative spark and
Yeah.
watching it go through. 20 years to make it really truly into a career. So
Right.
you're at that 10-year marker of having that light of inspiration. And in
Yeah.
that 10 years,
Yeah.
the industry started to come to you. People started coming to you, as I'm assuming what happened. So can
Yeah.
you thread that for me? One, being so now fully open
Yes.
about who you are, how you work, like how you are in the world, how people can support who you are in the world, how people can be
Yeah.
curious about people
Yeah.
with disabilities and look at things differently. At what point do you bridge the gap into acting? Because you being an editor and having all these other skill sets, it
Yeah.
made me wonder if there was ever a desire to be behind the camera or if the desire was to be in front of camera, because now you got both skills running.
my desire had always been behind the camera. And it's so interesting because now with where I'm at, have you ever read The Alchemist?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to totally get the reference here. Where I'm at now is all making sense of why I did everything I did in my past to be as good as I am today. Obviously, there's so much more growth. I'm well aware of that. But to have the skill sets, as you're saying, to get to this point, it all is making sense now, right?
10
So
years in, right? 10 years in, you're like,
literally,
oh, okay.
all of it. So my original major was journalism because I've always loved learning about people's stories. I've always wanted to talk to people about their journeys, their stories, everything else. So then I transitioned into video editing. Video editing was the thing. I had done music videos, little brand commercials, my own YouTube channel. I edited like vignettes for colleges, like for their departments. That's, hi, welcome to the such and such department at such and such university. I did it all because I really wanted to be a video editor. Then, once I started my YouTube channel, it was just about I found purpose in my YouTube channel, right? Where I felt like the other things, I don't really think I found purpose in it other than I just really enjoyed to do it. And I wanted to be a part of making beautiful things as an editor. So when I started my YouTube channel and started getting the comments and the responses from people, the messages of, I've had people, this is an example I always remember. I had done a video giving tips on how people with disabilities can feel confident when doing job interviews. And a girl hit me up and was like, oh my gosh, Lolo, I'm so glad you posted this video because I have a job interview next week and I'm going to take your tips. I want to say a week or two later, she DMs me back and is like, Lolo, I got the job. Thank you so much. I never would have thought I'd be able to. And I'm like, whoa, something's happening here.
Yes.
So that's when I found my purpose in it. So initially, it was about being behind the scenes and just being creative, being in front of the camera, even on YouTube. It was only about supporting the community. It was never about being an actor or some sort of influencer or being popular or famous. Like none of that mattered to me. I was just like, as long as I can share my story, if fame or popularity comes as a result of me sharing my story, I'll take it. But my goal was never to be famous, ever. That's when so as a result of doing my YouTube channel, I met my stylist, who's been my stylist ever since, Stephanie Thomas, and she knew the agent of all agents who represented people with disabilities in the industry. She was like, Lolo, you're killing it on YouTube. I think it's time that you should get an agent. Let me introduce you to the agent that's repping everybody. So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. So meet with this agent. Her name's Gail Williamson. She's retired since, but I met Gail and we had a great conversation. And she was like, I would love to take you on as a client. And should anything come up, I'll let you know. I want to say maybe a year later, she hits me up and she's like, hey, Lolo, there's this indie film specifically looking for a young Black girl who's a wheelchair user. Do you want to audition? And I was like, sure, why not? Who am I to say no? And I auditioned and met with the director, and they loved me and they casted me in this film, which was Give Me Liberty.
Okay, before we get any further, for somebody that's so great at editing, you're piecing together stories all the time. But then to step in front of camera, I think you start to learn, oh, I'm going to edit this later, so I know what's needed here and there. But also that's you speaking from experience, that you starting to understand, oh, this will be interesting to bridge the gap for people.
Yeah.
It's similar to doing investigative work on a piece of script where you are like, oh, studying behaviors. I know how this might edit together. But what skill set do you have, or what do you pull on for that audition? For that first kind of audition, were you stepping into a class? What were you doing? Or again, is this the Lolo sauce where you're like, I know this world. I'm literally, pun intended, gonna roll with it.
Yeah, you know what? It was more so that than anything else. Obviously, I had done like a little bit of, okay, who is this character? Who is this girl? And what personal experiences can I pull from that make sense to the sides that I'm reading for the audition? So the scene that I auditioned for or auditioned with was the scene where we were on the van and oh God, now I'm losing it. We were in the van, and I believe it was the scene where we were talking about the records. He had the records in the crate, and it was like this really cool conversation in the back of the van. And I was like, I've had conversations with my drivers. I'm in the van. I know what it's like to be on a van, a little bit stressed out, but just like wanting to talk to somebody. And so I was like, I'll just act like the driver was one of the drivers I had talked to in my past. And yeah, and that's all I really had because between that moment of being cast and us actually filming ended up being like 2 years anyways.
There was 2 years between casting and shooting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why
Because
so? Do you know why? Was it money? What happened? Money.
money being an indie. So throughout those couple of years, I have gotten to learn more and more about what our director, Kirill Mikanovsky, and our producer, who's also co-wrote it with Kirill, Alice Austin, we would talk about it together about who is Tracy, what about Tracy. And then by this time, I had seen the whole script. So I was able to pull from other scenes to put together who this girl is and then how much I can bring my own experiences into who she was and be like, oh, okay, I remember feeling that way before. And then working with them on what they wanted Tracy to end up being.
I Beautiful work. I'm obviously also nominated for an independent film award.
Yes.
Your first film,
Yeah.
having no idea that this like slingshot of pressure from your corporate job
Yeah.
would throw you in front of camera, getting to share so much more of your
Yeah.
experiences every day. What a beautiful film that hits
Thank you.
Sundance. And
Yes.
again, it's necessary for you to be in a wheelchair. It's
Yes.
necessary for a lot of the actors in this story
Yes.
to be dependent on somebody else driving them. So,
Yes.
but what's so beautiful about it, and I'm so glad to now know that there was like this 2 year incubus, like kind of
Yes.
place that you guys could really mull over it because it doesn't feel like any of the characters are based on being wheelchair bound or being
Right.
disability bound. So much personality, so much life. Exactly why your show or your YouTube show is created for Sleeping
Yeah.
Pretty. Now it's in this beautiful vessel of a film that
Yeah.
takes you on a ride.
Yeah.
So being slung, like having all this momentum of the slingshot,
Yeah.
what opens up for you once this hits Sundance? Because at this point, you said that your agent is no longer, was she able to, or she was retired? I don't
Yeah.
know. But did you still have a team at this point going to Sundance? Because going to Sundance as an actor, everybody knows it puts
Yeah.
you in a different place to have different opportunities come to you. There's more light again.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the interesting, here's the interesting part. I was still working my full-time job during
You're still doing that same corporate job?
same corporate job. I ended up getting a new boss because ironically, only a few weeks after that initial conversation, she ended up getting fired.
Hmm.
Boom.
Karma.
Talk about all the things. So I ended up getting a new boss, and that boss was incredible. Loved her. Her and I are actually still really cool to this day. But during the time, here's the thing with my experience. And Gail used to joke about this all the time, where she was just like, there's nothing about your career so far that has made sense. You have not done anything that traditionally, this is the way it goes. Normally, this is the way it goes. It's somehow Lolo's getting this opportunity and this is what's happening. So once it was time to film Give Me Liberty, because again, it was 2 years. To be honest, I didn't take it seriously all the way. I knew it was happening, but it was like, is this really gonna happen? It was a lot of stop and go. Once I realized it was go time, I was like, uh-oh, I didn't take no acting classes yet. I haven't really prepared or anything. So I probably say 4 acting classes to this
Ooh,
day.
which one? Which
I,
one?
I went to TSAW, Tasha Smith's acting workshop, I think is what the letters stand for. But I had only took 4 of their classes. So that's the only training that I've ever had as an actor.
You're Jennifer Lawrencing this. You know that, right? You know how everybody's like, don't give her an acting coach. Just go off instinct. It's okay, Lolo. Don't touch anything. Just do what you're doing.
And you know what's so interesting? I've always battled between that. I'm like, is it time to get training now? Or should I just keep leaning into my instinct? Because obviously the instinct is working. But that's a whole other, that could be a different part of the conversation. But so I go, do Give Me Liberty. I work part-time during filming, so that way I don't ultimately get fired. Then once, again, as hectic as the actual movie was as hectic as it was filming it. So I'm even on set, like telling my homegirl who was with me to help me. I was like, girl, I don't know if this movie gonna make it. I'm like, I don't know if we gonna make it through post-production. I don't know. I said, I'm going to give my all. I'm going to do my best because this is an incredible experience. This is something I've never done before, but I'll be really surprised if we have to worry about this once we get back home.
Can I dig into that a little bit? Because I think I'd be remiss not to. So a lot of people juggle a day job and then trying to pursue this other job as well. How many days did you shoot that? How were you able to be like, okay, I'm going to keep my corporate job? So were you piecemealing? I need Tuesday and Friday off next week. And then the following Tuesday, I'm also literally, how did you do that?
Okay. So this is a wild story within itself. Once I found out that it was real, like the film was happening, blah, 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 I was being asked to film for almost 3 weeks in Milwaukee. And I said, uh-oh. But again, I can't go back on living on disability. I have to keep my job. How's this going to happen? Spoke with the boss, whom I love. Mind you, she had no idea even about my YouTube. So when I finally come to her and I'm like, hey, so I got to tell you something. And she's just, what's going on? And I'm like, where do I start? I tell her about the YouTube. I tell her about my social media following. She's Lauren. I don't even know who you are anymore. Like she was so like shocked and surprised. Then I drop it on her because she's also a movie producer. So I knew she would understand the ask that I was getting ready to ask her. So when I finally asked her, she was like, oh boy, Lauren, I'm going to be honest with you. She was like, I don't know if we can pull this off. Very long story short, a couple of things happened on the corporate level with the job. Some people were let go and all kinds of different things happened. But essentially, it put me in position where by the time it was time to leave, I was the only person in my department left.
Oh, desperate times. She needs to work with you.
So my job was like, we can't let Lauren go because she's the only one who knows how to do this. And this is what's happening or whatever. So what they did was they downgraded me from full-time to part-time. So that way I can keep my role at my job and then go film for the weeks that I was in Milwaukee. But literally in between like setups when we would go back to holding, I was on my phone. I was responding to work emails. On my days off, I would be able to jump on the Zoom calls and talk to the team. I was able to call people back when I was done filming that day or whatever it was. I always made time for my job because I knew what was happening was not normal. I knew it was only a blessing from God. And I was like, I cannot take advantage of this. I need to do what I need to do to make both happen. So did
And
that during
at
filming.
the yeah, at the end of 3 weeks, did they bump you back up to full time? Because
Yes.
I love that you're also like, this movie's gonna go into the hole, and who knows if it'll even be done.
Yeah. And so after the filming, they bumped me back up to full time. So I was able to get my hours that way. Then when it was time to do reshoots in November, that was only for a weekend. So I was like, oh, I'll just take the days off and go shoot reshoots. And then that's when I found out about Sundance.
That's when you found out it was going to Sundance. Okay.
That's when I found
Now,
out.
at this point, because sometimes actors are like, I'm going to Sundance. I've
Yes.
got this movie. I can
Yes.
let this other job go. Did you still keep the other job?
Absolutely. I
Good.
kept this job until after the Spirit Awards ceremony. Because that's when I was like, okay, maybe this acting thing is something.
Yes, not that award shows are political, and let's all say that, but not the
Yeah.
Independent Film Award.
Right.
Of all the awards, that's the one I would think for me is the most treasured.
Yes.
It honors independent filmmaking. It is
Yes.
not usually political in any
Yes.
way. So I feel like
Yes.
that is a notch of please pay attention to this movie. Please pay attention to this brilliant talent that we just
Yeah.
discovered out of nowhere.
Yes.
So take me on the ride now
Yes.
of you're nominated
Yeah.
and now you have a team behind you. Is Gail still with you at this point?
Gail, yes, Gail is still with me, and that was about it. It was just me and Gail and my stylist. Like my stylist, like helped me pick outfits for Sundance, for Cannes, those things. But it really was just me and Gail because technically, even during that whole run, I was still working a job. So
Yeah.
like it had not fully clicked like a career is being built here. It was
Yes.
just, oh, this is a really great experience. I get to go to Sundance. This is cool. And the thing is, because I was already working in the marketing department for film distribution slash streaming service, my coworkers were at Sundance too. So it was like,
Crossover. I love this
it was
crossover.
the crossover. So it was like they got it. They understood what was happening with my career. They came and saw the movie at Sundance. So it's like they understood what was happening. So they worked with me. They saw again, it was that thing of it just seemed, oh, this is a really cool experience. Everyone is on board. Yeah, 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 yeah. It did not click until after the Spirit Awards where I was like, okay, I can't juggle both any longer. I have to make a decision. And then that's when I quit my job. And that was, I quit my, so the Spirit Awards was February 2020. I quit my job the first week of March. And by the second week of March, the whole country shut down because of COVID.
Oh, I'm glad you did that timeline because in my head, my next question was going to be like, okay, we've hit a different stratosphere of
Yeah.
opportunity,
Yeah.
but what kind of opportunities do you want? Okay, so COVID happens,
Yes.
everything gets shut down.
Everything.
Let's pick up then like 6 months to a year later, because
Okay.
look, we're all at the mercy, we're all on the government's dime at that point. Thank God,
Right.
in some ways. Like it
Right.
allows us all creatives as the
Yeah.
world is crashing down. So are you able, when auditions come back online or opportunities
Mhm.
come back online, are you being selective or is it hard to find opportunities that you meet the role for? Where does Sex Lives come in? How do we get to this place? Because I think sometimes people are like, okay, I'm too tall. So I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to audition for X, Y, and Z. Or like
Yeah.
Jason Momoa, they didn't
Yeah.
want somebody like him for Game of Thrones, right? We need to
Mm.
find how our instruments show up visually
Yeah.
because it's a
Yeah.
visual medium. Was it purposeful for you to make sure that you were playing roles that weren't because you were in a wheelchair or but
Mhm.
because it was more identity seeking, like more
Yeah.
you being able to present? Because to me, you building this beautiful channel, getting to
Yeah.
show who you are in this
Mm.
experience, is the industry meeting you there in any way? Or are you and Gail trying to pave the way to be like, see this person, see this story differently?
You know what? It started off honestly with roles that were specifically calling for either disability or people in wheelchairs. The interesting thing about that time during COVID was that was like the big boom of inclusion and representation. And then, especially as a Black woman, after the whole George Floyd riots and incident, I shouldn't even call it a murder on camera, people were like, oh, let's include, let's check the box, let's check the box. And so I ended up getting a lot of, honestly, like I was getting auditions like back to back. Was I aware that it felt more of an inclusion checkbox than before? Sure. But for me, the way I looked at it was like, okay, even if that's the case, me being represented on camera is bigger than any weird intention a studio or a production might have.
Yes.
And I hate that I even have to justify it, but because more people don't understand the behind the scenes of the business, it's more important to just let the people who don't know believe that stuff is happening, if that makes sense.
And see that. I
And
actually
see it.
love that you just said that. The
Yeah.
political system of the studio and how they're
Yeah.
being influenced to put out a story is one thing, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating. It's
Yeah.
frustrating
Yeah.
on so many different levels.
Absolutely.
Yet the final product is what educates and entertains.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that you were able to take opportunity where the studios or whoever it might be are like, we should open up our lanes a little bit more. We're being forced to maybe look at different storytelling. Oh,
Right.
okay, great. Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Exactly.
That you're able to be like, okay, yeah, let me invite you in to how this can all be perceived.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or again, I think so much of your platform is to educate in a comical way and to
Yeah.
educate in a lighthearted way to
Yeah.
allow us to be invited in, the world to be invited into the experience every day.
Yeah.
So for Sex Lives, what is the conception of this character? It is in the pilot. So I
Yes.
didn't know if the pilot was actually written specifically for disability or if it was, again, we're in this time where you get the opportunity to audition for several things that are just open and then
Yeah.
you change their mind. How does this start and go?
So with Sex Lives, they were specifically looking for talent with disabilities. And again, at that time, everything that I auditioned for at the time specifically called out for disability. I do not believe this would probably be more of a question for Gail at that time. Or was Katie on board by that time? I can't remember. I think it was Katie at this time. By this time, I think Gail had retired and Katie, I don't know, they were like working at the same time. It was something that was happening like that. Either way, Katie McGrath, who's my agent now, she's incredible. I don't know if they were trying to force auditions or force casting to look at me for roles that didn't call for disability at the time. I think, and this is just my complete assumption, that there were auditions for people with disabilities happening relatively frequently that maybe they didn't need to. I don't know. But I just remember auditioning on a regular basis at that time. Anywho, Sex Lives comes around. They're specifically looking for talent with disabilities. Mindy Kaling's attached. I said, oh shit, this is about to be the kind of project I want to be a part of. Jocelyn started off as a recur. They just wanted Jocelyn pop in, pop out on certain episodes or whatever the case is. Then, so I self-tape because this is during COVID. So I
Mhm.
self-tape. Then the callbacks happen on Zoom. I do the callback. And then shortly after, when my agent told me that I got the role as Jocelyn, she then told me that they bumped Jocelyn up from a recur to a fractional series regular because of how good I did in the callback on Zoom. So that's how Jocelyn ended up in the pilot and being frequently seen throughout seasons 1 and 2 because they just liked what I did with Jocelyn so much that they were like, no, we want to see more of her. And that's how that happened.
This is the dream.
Yeah.
This is the dream sandwiched with also a little bit of the nightmare. And I want to see
Yes.
if I don't think you think of this experience as the nightmare, but I think a lot of
Yeah.
actors hate the Zoom audition. There's so much pushback on self-tape. There's even more sometimes pushback. There's more pushback on self-tape than there is on Zoom.
Mhm.
What did you do in that Zoom? Because some people, it's so hard for them to get comfortable. Maybe that's where
Yeah.
the YouTube channel comes in. But
Yeah.
can you give some tangible insights on what you brought to Jocelyn or just your comfortability? That's the dream, right? It's truly the
Yeah.
dream for them to be like,
Yeah.
we like her so much. You know what? Let's just
Throw
let's just
her in a few more
put her
times.
in everything.
Yeah. I do believe that one of the biggest things was the fact that I'm comfortable talking to a camera. Like, it's my vibe. It's my just like I'm used to it. There's a comfortability there more than anything else. I was very nervous because, again, I had never auditioned in this way on Zoom. It was still very awkward because on the Zoom call, it's like they pin your screen, and then at the top, there's 20 different other squares that are blacked out. So I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I don't, who are these people watching me? What is going on? It was very intimidating in that way. But the thing with Jocelyn that I can honestly say was Jocelyn was me in college. I was the girl that partied. I knew the what was happening. I was that girl in college. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was doing a lot of things in college.
You're doing the
I
college
lived
life.
the
Literally
college life. Exactly. Especially coming from a small town, moving to LA. Like, I was Jocelyn. So it, I will say Jocelyn's a little bit more of an asshole than I was back then, but still, I was that girl. So for me, Jocelyn was just a character that felt that I was very comfortable being and acting out. So I can honestly say, I don't know if I did anything extra during the callback on Zoom. I think maybe like the comfortability of knowing who Jocelyn was because I was her at one point, along with the comfortability of just talking to a camera, just worked out. And again, this was one of those moments, you know what? I think what Gail was my agent still at the time. This was one of those moments where Gail was like, nothing normal happens for LoLo. Like it's just 1 minute we think we're doing this, the next moment something else is happening. A lot of it, I can honestly say, I do feel is divine.
It is divine. I always just say, what's for you will find you. It doesn't matter if you mess
Mhm.
up in the audition. I talked to somebody the other day and they're like, I really bombed my Zoom audition. What happened the next day? She's, and I booked it.
Period.
Usually, when you don't, you're not trying to make it perfect. You're not trying to
Yeah.
hold on so deeply. You're trying to
Yeah.
you have other things going on
Yeah.
that it all falls into place. I love that Gail's like, this is not the trajectory that we normally see, but yet here we are. Here we are. And
Yeah.
like, and yes, anding these opportunities. In yes, anding these opportunities, I have to sandwich with you do a Sundance indie film that
Yeah.
you don't even know if it's gonna get made and be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Then stepping into a huge show
Yeah.
with Mindy Kaling.
Yeah.
It's HBO, right? Or
Yes.
Max?
HBO Max.
Max.
Yeah.
It's Max. It's a
Yeah.
studio system that is running everything. What'd you learn? What was the difference for you from feeling, I don't know, this might work. I'm doing this kind of thing to,
Yeah.
oh, I've got a job I have to show up to every day. I've got a studio to respond to. What did you learn as an actor?
You know what? That's a wonderful question because there's still that part of me that, even to this day, that part of me that's because I didn't fantasize or dream or wanted to be an actor since I was like 7 and all of that. I don't have that internal pressure that I put on myself.
Mm.
There's still a certain level of naivete that I have with acting that's okay, I'm gonna try it like, and see what happens. Because again, my goal is about the representation of it. Like I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't give a fuck what avenue it comes in. Just let me show up to show you that people with disabilities can be in these spaces. I still was having some of that, but as far as like knowing, okay, this is a studio, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, now I'm working along people who have actually acted before. Because remember, Give Me Liberty, we were all first time actors,
Yes.
except the
The
guy who plays
driver,
Max.
right? Is that the driver wasn't?
No, the driver is a first time actor too. They found
He
him
was?
delivering a cake in Brooklyn. The casting director saw him and was like, wait a minute, do you act? And he was like, no. And so she was like, I really want you to like try this role. And that's how Chris, the guy who plays Victor, the lead in our film, and he got nominated for a Spirit Award too.
I'll be damned. I
Yes.
literally thought that in watching it, I was like, oh, it looks like he's been around for a
Yep.
while.
Nope. We were all first time actors. So when I got on Sex Lives and I was like, wait, she went to Yale
For acting?
for acting? I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, she was on Broadway? Oh, I'm in a different ballpark now. So for me, what I wanted to hold on to was the naivete, to be completely honest, because I didn't want to skew away from my intuition and who I knew Jocelyn already was. Yet my preparation was more so, okay, now I'm going to study the scenes at the house. Now I'm going to run scenes with a friend, make sure I'm hitting my beats, making sure I'm hitting the punchlines, because Jocelyn was the punchline girl. She came in to hit
He
the
was so
punchlines and
funny.
bounce.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, let me make sure I'm hitting my punchlines. Let me make sure I know the text. That was my biggest thing was memorizing. Because even going into Give Me Liberty, I thought I needed to memorize the whole script
Before you start it. Yeah,
before
putting
I
the
started. I
pressure.
had no idea until Gail was like, Lauren, no, you're only going to do a scene or two a day. Just know those scenes. And I was like, what?
Mhm.
Me. So that was a thing that I even learned on Sex Lives was like, just know the scene, just know the scene in and out, be on time, enjoy yourself, have fun, really have fun being Jocelyn, and just go along with the flow. Don't put too much on it. Yes, there's people at the studios there and producers there, but for me, it didn't register as like, anything that would affect my job. I just thought they
A-
were there.
yeah, a bigger pressure situation. And also you've done 2 seasons of that, 3 seasons of that so far?
Three seasons of Sex Lives.
3 seasons of
Um,
Sex Lives. That's
yeah,
a lot of, so you're getting your education
yes.
for, because television acting is also different than a film. You have a
Oh my God, so much
container
different.
where you're like, okay, act one, act two, act three. I can see where my character is starting, where the struggle
Yes,
is, where they're going to redeem
yes,
themselves, and scene done.
yes,
Television, we're going week to week. And like you said,
yes,
you are working with people that have really excavated education
yes,
around script analysis and
yes,
understanding how to go week to week, where it's okay, this week, this is what's happening with Jocelyn. Next week, you're like, oh, I didn't
right,
see that happening, or I didn't know
right.
that's where she was coming from. What kind of tangible things did you learn from 3 years of being with a
Mhm.
character and or watching some of the other people that had been more educated in this
Yeah,
lane?
yeah. The thing that I really learned, so the interesting part about playing Jocelyn was that it was something that obviously I would have loved to happen, but didn't get the chance to, which is fine. It's totally fine. But I wanted Jocelyn to have a little bit more of a story arc throughout the seasons of Sex Lives. Jocelyn was one of those characters that just popped in, said a punchline, something funny, and then she popped out. So there wasn't really much I had to remember as far as who was Jocelyn at the beginning of the season
Mhm.
versus at the end. They wanted Jocelyn to be that exact character. Pop in, pop out, say what you got to say, and go home, basically. So I didn't really have to do much in that sense. However, the thing that I did pay attention to when it came to my castmates was how comfortable they knew the text. That was all. My biggest thing was wanting to memorize. I just wanted to remember my lines. I didn't want to be the one that's, wait, can we do another take? I'm sorry, I fucked up. They taught me how to be on top of the text, understand it, and then when they made mistakes, I was comfortable with making mistakes too.
Yes.
That's when I learned. I was like, oh, wait, I can make a mistake?
I can try something and it might not land, or yes.
Exactly. Or I'm fumbling over the words. And instead of being like, wait, can we start again? Don't fuck it up. You just, So you thought that we were going to just keep going. And that was some of the like small nuances that I've learned. I learned even during a table read, act it out. I thought you just read the text. We didn't really do a table read for Give Me Liberty. So I didn't know.
You got a crash course, you got paid in a crash course in television making. And I have to say, LoLo, I talk about this on the podcast all the time.
Yeah.
My daughter is also a budding actress. And this morning we just had the conversation of what's the harder part in a television show or a movie, the lead or the person who popped in? And she was like, the lead's got to be harder. And I'm like, honey, no, actually, the person that's popping in has a harder time. She's like, why? Because they have less words to say. And I said, no, it's timing. You have to be actively really listening. And yes, also, if you only have a couple lines or if you're popping in, it might feel more mentally challenging because you're like, they said a whole 2 pages of stuff and I have to say my line and I didn't get the timing right or whatever. It's just a little bit more mentally draining than the person who's leading the show because they're literally leading. They even ask leading questions or they're setting up the story. They're setting up the plot points. Exactly. So again, every time that you've gotten to work, how interesting that you are getting to work in the more challenging aspect, but yet your naivete actually is great. Here I am.
Literally. And for me, honestly, like even though Jocelyn popped in and popped out, I knew that I had to be memorable though. I didn't get as much screen time as the leads do. So people naturally are going to remember them more because they literally are seeing them in every episode for 30 something minutes in every episode. I only get like the 2 minutes that I'm on screen and then I'm out. I have to make those 2 minutes count. I have to be memorable. I have to make sure that I land the punchline. I have to make sure that the reason they brought me in from recur to fractional series regular is because of these moments. I had to make it count. So that was one thing that I will say about it too that I learned was like, don't worry about nothing else. Just be memorable. Make this scene memorable without trying to overshine your castmates.
Exactly. Without making a meal on it. You just took the question out of my mouth. Because sometimes then we as actors will make a meal out of it, those couple of lines versus sticking to the story and playing the musicality of the scene where the here we come, but dun dun. You're the dun every single time.
Exactly.
So how to stay in that energy and not implode, but also not make so much of it that it stops the story and it feels clunky. Way to also be on a show with Mindy Kaling, who knows how to write for musicality. So you are getting literally a song handed to you every week. And you've got some of the most important parts to play that song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since it's called That One Audition.
Yeah.
I was really curious, unless there's something else. What is that one audition for you? I was going to ask about Bob Trevino, but I don't want to put it in your mouth because I'm still going to ask about it. But
so
the TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created the Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
I will have to say the one audition for me was Sex Lives, because that changed everything. It changed everything. And the way that the initial self-tape audition happened, that was a whole day within itself. So earlier that day, I think I found out the day before. This is the thing that I can't stand about self-tapes, is you'll get the audition appointment only like a day or two before the actual appointment, as if I don't have other shit that I had booked or whatever the case is. So I get this thing with Sex Lives probably like the night before or the day before, and I'm like, oh shit, I have to submit a self-tape by tomorrow evening. Now, mind you, they probably thought that was okay because we were in COVID. There wasn't much we were probably supposed to do.
We didn't have our strike rules yet of 48 hours. Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, oh, here we go. The day that I was supposed to submit the self-tape, I had booked a modeling job for Bank of America. What does that even mean? Random. A modeling job for Bank of America. I go down there. It's in, I want to say we were shooting like downtown or Santa Monica. I live in the Valley. And for anyone who does not know, that is the two furthest points within LA County that you can go without.
You got a couple hour podcast interview you can listen to on that drive.
Literally that. So I go to this Bank of America photo shoot. And I get there at 9:00 a.m. I'm thinking, okay, this is probably not going to go past 3:00. I'll be able to get home, practice my sides, knock out the self-tape. It is about 9:00 in the evening, and I'm still on set for the photo shoot. They had not released me. Yeah, they had not released me. I took some photos, but it was very like, what's the term? Like cattle. Like they say that's like a cattle
call, where it's like a lot of people.
Yes. So there was a lot of us in the room, and they were just picking us. It's your turn. It's your turn. So most of the time I'm just sitting there. Are they ever going to call me or whatever the case is? It's 9:00 at night. And I'm like, I have to get this in by midnight. And I don't know my sides. 9:00 at night. Then they finally go, let's go. So now I actually have to do the photos. I do the photo shoot. By the time I'm done with my portion of the photo shoot, it's 10:30. So I had to go to the producers of the photo shoot and say, hey, this is when using a disability comes in handy. So I said, hey, the wheelchair vans stop running at midnight. I cannot afford to stay any longer. I actually really need to go home. I said, you guys have me scheduled for the next day. Fine, but I need to go home. And so they were like, oh my God, yes, oh my God. They ordered the Uber for me. I get in the van. Again, I'm downtown. So I said, all I have is the time from downtown to home in order to memorize my sides. So I'm in that van memorizing. My friend, my really good friend, who just so happened to live right around the corner from me, was helping me with my self-tape. So I'm keeping him updated. I'm so sorry it's late. By the time I get home, it's 11:00 at night. And my friend and his boyfriend come over. My friend who's helping me with the self-tape, my friend's boyfriend knocked out on the couch. I'm in a studio apartment at this time, by the way. So I'm like, I really hope he doesn't snore. Otherwise, we're fucked. So we do the audition. It's like 11:30, and like at 11:45, I was like, okay, I think we got the best tape we can without crashing out completely. Send it in. And that's how I submitted that audition.
How many takes did you do? Did you you didn't have time to do a lot?
No, not really. I probably say like a handful, but like the only reason I kept doing it was like I kept flubbing the line. So it was like the 1 or 2 takes that I did where I actually nailed every line. I was like, okay, I just have to send it in. Otherwise, because I'm getting tired. It was a lot.
It's a lot. You're working. And that's the thing. I think sometimes when we're juggling so many things, it's the auditions that you don't have a lot of time to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus the ones that you're mulling over for 2 days. Sometimes,
Yes.
sometimes we're overthinking the part.
Yeah.
I love that. And then does Bob Trevino, because I know we're running out of time, but does Bob Trevino just come to you? Like, how does this story, because you have Sex Lives going, you've got this great, anybody that has a nomination for an indie film award, I think would make you very much a selectable choice.
Yes.
To audition for a story like this. Again, where somebody needs to have a disability, but it's not, this character is not written because of that. There's so much more that you bring to this beautiful story. Your guys' relationship is what brings me so much to this story.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love Barbie so much. Barbie is just as cool as a cucumber. But so as far as Bob Trevino is concerned, Tracy, our director, she had been a fan of mine. She had always said, writing the film, she was like, Daphne, I want it to be LoLo. I want LoLo to play this role.
How did you guys know each other?
I didn't.
How did she know your work? Did she see the movie? Which one did she see Sex Lives?
I would have to assume that she saw Give Me Liberty. I think with the tone of Bob Trevino, I'm like, she had to have seen Give Me Liberty. Sex Lives wouldn't. But Sex Lives could make sense too.
Absolutely.
But Tracy knew me, I believe, from Give Me Liberty and maybe my YouTube channel, to be completely honest. So she had sent the script to my agent. By this time, it definitely was Katie. Katie was my agent by this time. Gail had retired. And sent it to Katie. And Katie's like, hey, LoLo, there's this indie film. Barbie Ferrer is attached. Read the script. Let me know what you think. I can't even remember. I must have been in the middle of filming Sex Lives at this time. But for some reason, I was insanely busy. Like insanely busy that I couldn't even get to reading the script. So at least two weeks had went by. And Katie kept sending reminders, LoLo, read the script. And I'm like, fuck, I don't have time. One night, I finally decided to read the script. And by the end of the page, the last page, I was like, oh my God, I need to be a part of this movie. I need to be a part of this movie right now. I text Katie, it's 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I'm so sorry for hitting you up late, but please tell them I want to be part of this movie. Please let me be a part of this movie. Please tell me they have a recast. Please, I need to be a part of this movie. And luckily, nothing had happened with the role, and they gave it to me direct offer. Yeah.
I just want to say, well,
nothing about this makes sense. I know.
I've interviewed 700, 800 actors.
Yeah.
To have like your third project, like big project, be like, here's an offer, is a testimony to the work that you're putting out there. My lovely coach, who I love so much, it just takes one person. You don't know who's watching. You don't know who's being affected. You don't know the divine synchronicities of what's happening in the world.
Yes.
It's the brick lane that keeps on happening. You putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
This journey of yours.
I know. I try and make sense of it myself, and it makes no sense.
Is lit. And it's once you stepped on that path, fireworks have been going off.
Literally that.
So
literally.
Then I want to ask for everybody that's listening that would love to step on a path of fireworks.
Yes.
What is your inspiration? What is your advice for people that, for every actor, like I said at the beginning of this, I think actors get in their own way. Whereas I really want to be an actor. So then they're trying to hide themselves versus show themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've done such a beautiful job when you had that inspiration to start showing yourself and showing more of yourself and showing more of yourself. Yeah. What is the inspiration? Because sometimes people then are like, oh, am I oversaturating? Am I giving too much of myself? Like, what is the advice that you would give for any actor starting on this path? And then I also, any actor starting on this path that might have what they deem a disadvantage. Like I've talked to people that have dyslexia or any type of disability where they're like, this is going to stop. I can't read. So this stops me. But I've always called it the super D. I think that makes your brain think differently.
Yeah.
Makes you an incredible artist. So what's your inspiration? What's your advice?
That's a wonderful question. And it's one of those questions, I'm actually going to make a YouTube video about it. But it's one of those questions that, if I could be honest,
please be.
Sometimes I feel I'm not qualified yet to even give an answer to it because I know how divinely guided my journey has been, which is why I believe my journey has not been your typical actor's journey. It's hard for me to feel like I've done enough to tell actors what they should do, right? So
I respect that, yeah.
As a result of that, I don't know. The only thing that I can say as far as based on what I did throughout the journey was ultimately like just trust my own instinct. Really, I feel like now I'm in a space where imposter syndrome isn't as loud as it used to be. But even being on the set of Sex Lives, that's when it really kicked in that I was like, oh my God, these are trained actors. What does that even mean? I still hadn't even gone to acting class yet because when it happened with Give Me Liberty, I didn't have enough time. Then when Give Me Liberty was over, I went back to work. Then after quitting my job after the Give Me Liberty run, we hit COVID. Then I booked Sex Lives. When was I going to take an acting class?
And then now you're getting paid to do it. You're getting paid to do it there. So then speak on that because imposter syndrome, I think, is so huge for actors of all levels.
Yes.
New beginners, people that have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
One of your YouTube videos actually does even talk about confidence.
Yeah.
So I would love to know how you met that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Sitting on Sex Lives, because that was going to be my last question. Also, Bob Trevino comes out.
Yes.
This is a beautiful film. It's allowing more opportunities to show up on your doorstep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you deal with imposter syndrome?
I have to remind myself that if I was an imposter, really, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Like,
Facts.
if I wasn't any good, if I wasn't talented, if my instincts were wrong, if I didn't know enough about understanding the business, I would not be where I'm at. Because I'm not a person that comes from privilege. I don't have anybody in the industry in my family. I'm not a Nepo baby. I'm not your typical girl that gets cast in roles on every level, like from ethnicity to ability to gender. I'm not. But somehow I'm here. So I just have to trust that this is the path that God is taking me for a reason. And because I know that I have a purpose that is bigger than acting, which is the importance of representation and inclusion, that's the driver for me. Even when I'm like, damn, shit, I don't know if I'm like, it don't matter what they think or what's happening here. You know what your duty is as a human, as a soul. You know what your job is. So just focus on that part of your job. Don't worry about all the other stuff later. So that's what I've really, and I said this in one of the Q&As for Bob Trevino, where I said, now Bob Trevino has given me the confidence that I have range.
Yes.
Because before, again, it was like with Give Me Liberty, I was not prepared as an actor. I just was like existing.
You were available as LoLo to be in that. You were so available. So I don't want to discredit your instincts or your ability.
Yeah.
It takes people a lot of time and effort to be comfortable on camera and to be able to give and not put roadblocks in and trying to be seen. Like that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And also just effervescence. It just really, and confidence.
Yeah.
You just showed up and let the camera follow you, and it works. It works.
Yeah.
It works.
Thank you so much for that. Those are the reminders that I need of Lauren, watch yourself now.
So good.
But that is the thing that I tell myself is if I was truly an imposter, I would not be here.
I love that.
I just
do.
really wouldn't.
And look at all of the projects that you've been a part
Yeah.
of. Any of those people, directors, writers, Mindy, Tracy, if any of
Yes.
them thought, oh, I'm an imposter, or the story isn't worth being told, or my story isn't worth being shown,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have these incredible stories to immerse ourselves in,
Yeah.
whether that's on the acting side or getting to be the audience member.
Yeah.
And what I can deduce from just talking to you and doing some studying, so much of, like you said, your why is so crystal clear.
Yeah.
And I think when an actor is just wanting to be an actor, they don't have a why yet. It's hard for them to decide what to do, what not to do, what to say yes to, what to say no to, how to show up. Your clarity of the why and your inspiration 10 years ago to be like, I need more. I need to sustain myself more. I need to show myself more. Is what I think has allowed you to stay so beautifully in this lane and be a part of so many gorgeous projects. I cannot wait to see what you get to represent next, what story you get to show representation in next.
I cannot wait. I'm so ready for it.
I'm so excited. Can you tell everybody where to follow along for you on YouTube, on Instagram? And I mean, we've already talked about the things, but like your YouTube channel is popping.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm very excited about my YouTube channel because ever since Give Me Liberty, between Give Me Liberty and basically the top of this year, I had like abandoned YouTube. I had really just only like uploaded old videos from like a campaign that I was doing with Instagram, and then was like, oh, now I can put it up on YouTube. Let me just throw it up there. But as far as like intentionality with my content, has finally come back starting the top of this year. So I'm very excited about that. So everyone can subscribe to my YouTube at It's LoLo Spencer. It was sitting pretty, but now I changed it to LoLo Spencer. I just felt it needed.
You're the brand. Again, showing more of you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So everyone can subscribe there. And then on Instagram, my Instagram handle is at It's LoLo Love, ITSLOLOLOVE. And that's where I have a lot of more everyday updates and stuff like that. I upload weekly on YouTube every Sunday. And that's where you can find me. And my website, lolospencer.com.
And I'm feeling very called to ask.
Yes.
Do you have desire to write or direct? As somebody who has a vision of editing and somebody who has such a strong voice of sharing, is that in the works?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. I'm working on a project with a friend right now, and I have written rom-com because my dream role, one of my dream roles, I should say, is to do a rom-com alongside Michael B. Jordan. I know it sounds wild.
It doesn't.
But I've been saying this for years. I've been saying it in so many interviews for so many reasons, because Michael B. Jordan obviously is one of the hottest things that's ever, just talent-wise, but also visually. Hello. But aside from that, to see someone of his caliber, of his repertoire, of his desirability, be seen alongside a disabled woman in a romantic comedy where you can make the jokes about disability or whatever, and still be romantic with her, I think would shift perspective in such a monumentous way. And so I have actually been working on that script to hopefully one day pitch to him, and he will.
I think you should pitch to Michael and Ryan Coogler since they're a duo together.
They
Ryan
are.
directs this. We get another good we haven't seen Ryan do a rom-com yet. So
No. We
I
haven't
love
really
this.
even seen Michael do one. He did the one with Zac Efron. He wasn't the main. We
Yes.
need Mike to be the main.
Michael and LoLo. I can see it right now. And so it is. And so it is.
Yes.
You are such a joy. Thank you so much for coming and sharing and letting me pick into the building blocks of this.
Yes.
It really, truly, we do this job, like you said, to educate about representation, but also thank you for entertaining and like breaking people's hearts open and laughter and joy. You are just laughter and joy. And that's what that YouTube channel brings in so much. Thank you. Really.
Thank you so
really
much.
Thank you.